Hey, welcome to the Stringjoy Show. I am Ryan. I got to sit down and talk to Drew Smithers, who is the newest guitarist in the Marcus King band. And boy, just what an incredible conversation I had with him. It went significantly longer than what we have here. Really cool guy, really great stories, and you're not going to find anybody more humble than this dude in the music industry. We are super fortunate here to be talking with a guitarist from Nashville who has moved on to some really, really cool things. This is Drew Smithers, currently playing guitar in the Marcus King band.
Yeah, man. Thanks for having me.
Yeah, man. Now, I saw Marcus King a couple years ago, and you were not a part of the project at that point. So this is a fairly new thing?
Yeah. I guess my first official gig with him was New Year's Eve of 2022. So it's been a little over a year, and it's been a hell of a ride already, man. And Marcus hasn't had another guitar player in his band, so there was no reference point for me to check out what the other guitar player was doing. But man, he's very generous and for having me, man. And we've known each other since about 2017. So
yeah, because you worked at Carter, is my understanding, which
yes,
is
sir.
the coolest guitar store in the world. I like to go in there and look at things I can't afford whenever I can.
I'm a little jaded, but yeah, I'll agree with you. Yeah.
And you guys, my understanding is you guys became buds. You were in a band. The band toured with Marcus King for like 7 dates or something like that. You jammed with them.
It was like 6 weeks, I think. It was.
Okay,
it was a big tour,
and you jam with those guys, right? Yeah,
that was my favorite part of the night, man. Was getting to sit in with the guys at the end of the night, and man, it's I was in a band called Bishop Gun, and I was in that project for about 4 or 5 years, and we did some really cool things, man. Like opening up for Marcus on that tour, and we got to open for Guns N' Roses and Slash in Europe, and got to open for the Stones at NRG Stadium in Houston, which was that was pretty cool. But unfortunately, that project kind of fell apart, and this was right before COVID, and then things started picking back up, and so it was a fun tour with Marcus, and got to know the guys, and so it was like when I joined, it was like just coming back to hang. It was pretty seamless.
So it's interesting. You brought up Guns N' Roses. I've interviewed Richard Fortis.
Awesome.
Really great guy. But
totally.
from he told me the story of how he ended up doing the Guns N' Roses thing, and he was on tour in Europe with Enrique Iglesias, and got the audition, and he flew from Europe back to LA and did the audition. But what he told me was that, I mean, he's like the consummate sideman. Like, he goes, I was not familiar with Guns N' Roses prior to the flight from Europe to LA, where I learned all of the songs. And I kind of got, he's such a professional, and it was just kind of like, well, it's a gig, and the gig is going to put money on my table, and this is my job. I get a different impression from you. I get the impression of like, I wanted to be in this band. It was awesome when I got the opportunity, and I'm loving every second of it.
Amen. Yeah, it's funny because me and Marcus are totally different players, but it seems to it's like PB&J, man. It works really well together, and I'm just fortunate because we've always kind of talked about doing something, and he was like, do we just start like a side project, and then he just invited me to join the band, it's cool, man. And I mean, all the players in the project are just class A, and it keeps you on your toes every night. You always want to surround yourself with players that are better than you, and
which I do just naturally. That's one of my gifts, is surrounding myself with players who are better than me.
Hey man, that's the way to do it. That's the way to do it.
But it is cool that you get to invent your place in the band, because I have done I got to learn somebody else's parts for a show or a tour, and that, that's great. But that to me kind of falls more in the mindset of the Richard Fortis kind of thing, where it's like, I'm here to do a job, I'm here to make this show happen and fill this space. But you are paving your own way. How are you guys playing off each other? Like, Marcus is such an expressive player, and how are you, like, what are you trying to do? Are you trying to find spots? Are you trying to make, I mean, one of the beautiful things about playing, rhythm behind somebody who is, an expressive player, is you can make them go places.
For sure.
Yeah. And so, like, are you looking at this like, I mean, what's the strategy with this, with how you're putting yourself into this band?
Well, first of all, I don't want to step on anybody's toes, so it's trying to find your own lane and lift the band up. I guess texturally, like I kind of, I think about like, a painting or something, and like I play a lot of slide, so there's that texture, and with the band, it's just easy. I mean, for Marcus's new record, it's a lot of guitar riffs, so we double up on those parts, or sometimes there's a harmony. So it's just it's just a bigger sound with two guitar players, and but there's, like you said earlier, there's nothing wrong with learning parts. If there's a guitar part or from a record, or a guitar player that you're filling in for. Last year I did a lot, or 2 years ago I did a lot of dates, or some dates with Blackberry Smoke, and that was
cool.
That was me learning parts and kind of sticking to that, and I love doing that, man. It's great ear training, and it's not something that, I mean, you're adding your own flavor, but you're also taking from what's already been done. So it's so you're kind of build, your repertoire and your playing is only growing, being able to do that kind of stuff. But yeah, with the Marcus band, it's there was no direction. I was like, hey man, the first gig I said, if you hear anything that you're not digging, just give me a look, let me know. And I think all he said was, you know when to lay out. So I mean, there's and we've done gigs together, we've played together before, and so there's like a mutual understanding.
There is absolutely, I mean, you've played with people who you don't have that with, like the people that you guys are looking at the same chart and reading it completely different. And you've certainly played with frontmen who thought they wanted you to do this thing, and you were like, I'm just trying to play the songs, and I mean, like,
same guys are in the studio too. I mean, that's
absolutely. But when you do find that one, it's kind of like when you met your wife for your partner for the first time, and you were like, oh my gosh, you've been here this whole time.
Feels right.
Yeah. That's cool, man. I mean, I think a lot of people do find that, multiple times in their life. They find people who they connect with musically and stuff like that. They don't get to have that for their job though. So that's
right.
That's a cool thing. And I mean, you guys are both, I mean, I've seen a lot of like your Carter clips and stuff like that. So, see what you would play if you were just playing by yourself.
Right.
And, you hear a lot of almonds, and you certainly hear a lot of almonds in what Marcus is doing. And I imagine you guys probably connect up on that pretty well.
I think someone asked us, like, what's your favorite band? That's a hard question, but I think both of us kind of said out loud the original Allman Brothers Band.
Yeah.
And so there's that connection. There's something about harmony guitars, man. I mean, and someone who you can like lean on the other guy to pick it up while you're playing, or and that goes both ways, man. And it's the Almonds are definitely a big influence, and of course that Southern rock thing, and that's kind of how I got started. My dad took me to an Allman Brothers show. I remember the days. It's coming up, actually. It's March 12th, 2005, the anniversary of my first Allman Brothers show. And I was 16, and it changed my world. And, Derek Trucks and Warren Haynes were playing in the band at the time, and O'Teal. And I was just floored, man. I was like, I got to do that. Especially the slide thing. That's kind of what spoke to me. Yeah. So then that was like the gateway drug into, what are they listening to? What were their influences? And that kind of really, seeing that band like made me deep dive into the original band and really get into, the Dwayne and Dickie stuff. And, and then it was all, listening to, Delta blues and jazz and all that,
Yeah.
So they were definitely a big influence, and still are, man.
Yeah, no, that's awesome. Trucks is a force to be reckoned with, of course, as far as the slide goes. I played a festival once when I was like 21, and so Derek would have also been 21. I think we're roughly the same age, and he ended up. It was the second of 3 dates that he was playing that day. So he played like a morning thing, or an early noonish thing at a festival out east, flew to the Midwest, played the festival that I was at, and then was flying to the West to close out a festival. and apparently his, yeah, exactly. Apparently his, the amp that he had ordered for the gig didn't show, and they were kind of running around looking for amps for him. Mm-hmm. And I happened to have a Super.
There you go.
And so my Super
you can play through anything and it sound magical.
My Super ended up on stage with Derek Trucks, and I was just like, man, it doesn't sound like that when I play it.
Right. Some of those notes don't make, those aren't coming out of my guitar.
Yeah. No, that dude is wild. And yeah, I mean, like, it's funny how just pervasive the Allman Brothers were and are, and how foundational they were to the music that we hear coming out of today. I mean, like, Government Mule, all of those, all those Southern rock bands, like you hear the Allmans coming in and out of that, and just all the lore about Dwayne's gear, and what speakers were in his amp, and all that. It's
I've deep dived really heavily into all that stuff.
Well, do you? You're in Nashville. Do you hang out with JD Simo?
Yep. Yeah, JD was one of the first guys that I met when I moved to town, actually, and this was when he was playing a Burst and his purple Marshall full stack, and I was like, man, this guy, I want to be hanging out with him.
He would have to point it like off stage because it was too freaking loud. Yeah, man. And like, I saw an interview with him about the speakers that he chose to put in there, and it was like this weird combination of Altec Lansing copies and stuff like that, because he was trying to do the Almonds thing, man. Yeah. He wanted that sound, and it's just it's wild when people will go to any level just to kind of taste some of that.
Totally, man. I mean, it's there's something to be said about a guitar plugged into an amp.
Yeah.
No pedals. It's if you got a good guitar and a good amp, that's all you need.
Yeah.
And and then it kind of goes down to like tubes and speakers and pickups and strings and all that. And that's kind of my world. And with Dwayne, I think early on it was, he obviously had that twin reverb in the studio and Muscle Shoals, and with JBL speakers. And I think those D120s ended up in his Marshall cab. And then I think the closing of the Fillmore, he kind of had the 2 JBLs and 2 Serwin Vegas mixed
that's what it
master.
was. It was Sir and Vega, not Altic Lansing. I'm sorry.
And you can hear it. There's a different sound from like the Fillmore recordings and then the closing of the Fillmore. And so I'm a nerd with all that stuff, man.
That's awesome.
Yeah.
That's awesome. So you moved to Nashville how long ago and from where?
Moved from Chicago. I studied music up there, and
Where'd you go?
Columbia College.
Cool.
And was part of the blues ensemble there, man. And we got to do some cool things. That I was getting a credit to be in the blues ensemble. We got to open for B.B. King and in Indianola, Mississippi, his hometown. So I'm grateful for my time there. But my mom's from Mobile, Alabama, so I just have some Southern heritage in me.
I was going to ask how you got an accent. That's not the Chicago accent I'm hearing coming out of there.
But my mom's from Mobile, and so there's that. And I've always, just being down south felt like home. We'd always, go visit my grandmother and just felt, the grits and the biscuits and the country ham and, gumbo. That's just my world.
Yeah, man.
So I moved down to Nashville 2014. And I met JD like right around then, and Gary Bohannon, who was JD's tech, and then Carter Vintage like had just opened. So I was actually bar backing at the Bluebird Cafe, and that's just like my first gig in town. I was just like, I need to make some money, and that's where I met my wife, and so I'm grateful for that gig. And then I met Walter and Christy Carter at a Jack Pearson show. He's kind of like my mentor, the maestro. He's just he's the guy. He played in the Brothers from 97 to 99. And really one of the main reasons I moved down here, because he lived down here and he teaches, or he did. And so it's like, I got to get with this guy. And he was one of the first shows I saw when I moved to town. I was like, hey man, you teach, right? And so I did that for a good couple years every week, and I learned way more from that man than I did in music school.
That's wild.
And that's wild. So yeah, I met Walter and Christy at one of his shows, and I was like, do you guys need any help down there at the shop? And I think the next day I came in, and she's like, hey, can you stay for the rest of the day? And then that's just how I started working there. And 5 years, I guess. It was a good 4 years at the shop selling guitars, and then started kind of hitting the road pretty heavily with Bishop Gun, and then just since then just been on the road pretty much.
Well, that's cool, man. I mean, like having something to fall back on in those early stages is pretty wild. I went to music school and I moved out to New York, and I did that thing, and that first 6 months was, I was kind of like, man, am I gonna have to go home?
Right.
Because it was just like, I don't know anybody here. Everybody here is better than me, and I don't know what I'm gonna do.
Man. Same in Nashville. It's like the person waiting at your table is one of the best guitar players you've ever heard, or whatever. And it's we're just all trying to make it. We make a living.
My wife and I at one point, while it was still possible, now it's not because it's so freaking expensive in Nashville. But while it was still possible, we discussed possibly moving there. And what it kind of came down to was, I was like, I'm going to be the smallest fish in that bowl, so maybe not. Just because, I mean, like you said, everybody there is just wildly talented. Mm-hmm. But also, I mean, like, if you look, you mentioned, Marcus keeping you on your toes. I imagine you've been on your toes since you moved to Nashville, probably.
Well, yeah, it's seeing like Jack Pearson play at the Station Inn for 100 people, and he's playing anywhere from, slide guitar, Delta style, to bebop, to, it's just like an all in between, gypsy jazz. And it's like, how do you have that much time? He'll text me like late at night after, hey man, you still up? And I now that I have a 2-year-old, I can't do that shit anymore, man. But man, he'll go home after the gig and practice. You know what I mean? Like he's just that guy. And that's what kind of, you go to these gigs and you hear people like that, and it's either like, hey, should I set my guitar down or sell it, or but at the end of the day, it just makes you want to play that much more.
Yeah, summer's coming up. You got a 2-year-old at home. What's your summer look like?
Well, a lot of this year is going to be traveling, on the road. We leave for Europe in 2 days. We're there for a month or so, 3 weeks. And then we hit Australia and Japan after that. So that's March and April. Late April, we're doing Jazz Fest, New Orleans. And
that's cool. That's a cool fest,
man. I'm really excited. I've never been. It's been on my bucket list to go, but we're playing this year, so it's I think that's the coolest way to.
Yeah, exactly. That's when people are like, hey, you ever been to Jazz Fest? You're like, nah, played it.
Yeah, I played it. No, so I'm looking forward to that. It's definitely bucket list, man. I love New Orleans, and to be a part of Jazz Fest, pretty big deal. So, and then we're in the studio in May with the band, and then from there, man, it's pretty pretty extensive touring in the U.S. and a lot of festivals this year. So I'm looking forward to that.
That's awesome.
And we're doing some gigs with Zach Brown and Stapleton. That's kind of later in the summer, and I'm not too sure what the fall is going to bring yet, but man,
probably some college shows.
Yeah, hope to be up your way. I think we're going to be up there.
Yeah. So yeah, man, lots of touring coming up, and working on a record, and so like you're living this up as much as you can while you got it, right?
Yeah, for sure, man, and soaking up the time at home while I can with the little one and the wife before we head out, and before pre-baby, Sarah, my wife, would come out on the road with us, and but that doesn't happen anymore. Rarely, but we did the Ryman this fall. We did 2 nights there, and brought the kid to sound check, and one of the highlights of my career, man. We got to say, even though it was just a sound check, just to see him running through the pews, and pretty special. But yeah, lots of touring, doing the record, and we'll see. When I'm home, this past weekend, I just got done wrapping up some sessions. Did an EP for an artist, and so I stay pretty busy when I'm off the road too.
You can't stop.
Can't stop. Won't stop.
No. I mean, you can. When it's like, you just literally, like, in order to do this for a living, you just can't.
Yeah, you got to have a lot of irons in the fire, and just be willing to travel, be away from home, and I think that's the most there's a choose your suck with every profession, and being away from family is definitely that. But man, I'm just grateful to that my wife understands. And,
she wouldn't.
It wouldn't be the same.
Yeah, she wouldn't have married you if she didn't know this was coming. At some
That's
point.
right. That's right.
What does your touring rig look like compared to your recording rig? Like, what are you touring with right now?
So Marcus has a signature orange amp, and it's like a 30-watt Fender meets Marshall. It's a great sounding amp. It's only got 3 knobs, which I love the simplicity. It's volume, bass, and treble, and it just sounds great, man. Just turn it up. So I'm playing through 2 of those, and I got an 810 stack, and then a full stack. So it was pushing a lot of air. Yeah. And then as far as guitars, I got my number 1 Les Paul. It's kind of my main gal. And then I got a 64 SG Junior. Those are kind of the 2 main guitars. I do have a couple more. I don't have too many guitars. I got a custom shop 335 and an old Dobro 66 non-reverse Firebird, couple Silvertones, and that's pretty much it.
Yeah. Well,
so
you guys who are good at playing guitar, I look at them as tools. Yeah, I remember seeing like one of the worst rig rundowns you'll ever watch is the one with Larry Carlton in his studio.
Oh
because
yeah.
you know, like they're like, so what are your amps? He's like, well, I got this one and this one, and this is the one that I play most often. And they're like, in guitars, he's like, I got this one and this one, and I use this one most of the time. Yeah, and then he held on to. He held on to the Strat from the 80s. He's like, yeah, I held on to this one. I don't play it very much, but I play this one through that amp. Are we done? You know, and he was just like,
I love it.
Yeah, and he made some comment like, you know, like, why would I have more guitars just to look at them? Right. You know, and I was like, yeah.
Tools and toys, you know, it's as far as the studio rig goes, though, it's I love Fender amps, and I got an old I think it's a 65 Vibrolux. That's kind of my main recording amp, and I'll bring all the guitars to the studio because, you know, the Les Paul got humbuckers, the non-reverse Firebird's got mini humbuckers, the SG Junior's got P90, so different flavors, you know. And love recording with my old Dobro, man. It's a special instrument. It's probably one of my favorite instrument that I own. It's an old 30s wood-bodied Dobro brand Dobro. And that's special. I got a couple amps. I don't know if you could see that. Let's see if I can. 1970 50 watt. So that was a rig I was playing on in Marx's band before switched over to the oranges. Aesthetically, it's really cool to see a wall of orange, or, you know, the same amp on stage, you know. And there's something about guitar players and bass players playing through the same rig, you know. It's what the Almonds did.
Right, which seems like a no-no. Like, right?
Yeah.
It seems like one of those things where, like, you know, like we were talking about earlier, like painting, you know, here are these different textures and stuff like that. Yeah. And then you get two monster guitar players playing on the same rig, and it's kind of like, but you make it work because you're completely different guitar players.
Right. And, you know, as far as the pedal board goes, man, it's kind of like the Jimi Hendrix rules, like 3 pedals. I got a tuner. I got the aluminum Falcon, Piedmont Custom Effects. This guy, David Danielson, he makes these pedals with great sounding. It's kind of like a Klon clone, and a Flint for reverb or tremolo whenever I need it. But they rarely come on. You know, it's like I'll tune the guitar and then kind of forget about the other pedals. But they're there if I need them. And but it's really just plugging in and playing. And you know, you do get yourself into situations where the backline rig isn't all that great, you know, so you can kind of rely on an overdrive pedal for your sound, or, you know. I just did in January, where the Marcus King band was off the road for a while, but I did some acoustic shows with Charlie Starr from Blackberry Smoke, and then was on the road with J-Mo from the Allman Brothers, original drummer, man. And this band was put together. Big Band of Brothers is what it's called. So it's about a 15-piece horn section, and the musical director is the drummer, Sammy Miller. And so it's 2 drummers, Sammy and J-Mo, and then me on guitar playing the Dwayne parts next to J-Mo, man, that was Dwayne's first recruit for the band back in '69. So I'm still kind of pinching myself getting to play with him and be on the road with him and just hear stories. But, you know, you come across, you know, the backline rig was different every night, you know, whether it's a twin or a super or deluxe, but you just, you know, make it work.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, it's cool that you're in a band that is touring with amps in general. I mean, you know, like that's rarer and rarer and rarer.
It is.
I'm finding.
Yeah.
Do you Have you
Yeah,
messed
man. If
around?
Marcus played through like a Kemper or something, I'd be like, yeah, I don't know about this gig. No, but
Yeah.
luckily we're all nothing against that, but we're kind of just purists in the way of we want to be loud and we
Yeah.
want to turn up, and it's 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 the only way we know how to do it, I guess.
Yeah, man. So, you, with all of your playing, you're a Stringjoy player, right?
Yes, sir.
Um,
Anybody out there who doesn't have a pack of these strings yet, can't say it enough. Especially just the pure nickel. I've always just played. I've just tried to play pure nickel because they feel the best. But these are just otherworldly, man.
yeah.
I'm just such a big fan and just grateful to be a part of it. And I've been kind of working with Alex as far as like a custom gauge set, which I just came uh, to the conclusion of like this is my favorite pack of strings ever.
Yeah. What is your custom set? I have found that a lot of people have been, a lot of the pro players who I interview all have their own set. So, what is it you got going on?
Well, being a Dwayne fanatic and also Hendricks, I was, just what were they playing back in the day? And it was these old Fender 150 strings.
Okay.
And so it was, and they were pure nickel, but the gauges on them, they're 10, 13, 15, 26, 32, 38.
Weird.
So
That
10 to 38, it's a kind of a heavy top and a light bottom, and
yeah.
man, it feels so good. They
I want
feel
to try
so
it.
great. I'll send you a pack.
What I know a guy. I could probably get one. What's what is it? What does it do for you? Like having
Well,
a
I
heavy
think
top and a light bottom.
the I don't think I could go lighter than a 10 or heavier than a 10. I've just been so used to 10 to 46. But then I got on doing my research, and this was Hendrix's tech. I'm drawing a blank right now, but he came up with this. I think this set for Fender, and it was like the perfect relationship between like frequencies between the strings, the 10 to 13, the 13 to 15. There's something about a 15 gauge G string that is just it feels so right. But then you got the 26 D string, which is part of the 10 to 46 set. So you kind of feel at home there if you played a 10 to 46. And then the 32, 38, it's just kind of, it feels like butter on the low strings. And it's not like it's not overpowering the high strings because they're thicker gauge. I think it's just the perfect set, man. I'm a believer and a fan, and I'll tell everybody.
That's cool.
Yeah.
That's awesome. Yeah, no, I'll have to give that a shot. That seems rad.
10 to 38 pure nickel, like the Broadways are and just man, the packaging of these strings, everything, the company behind it, the people that work there, they're just
yeah. Are you
great.
changing strings every gig? Is your tech, do you have a tech that's changing your strings, or are you one of those like I change them when they get gnarly?
Yeah, I don't sweat too often, and so I can go a few shows without changing them. Marcus has a tech who he takes care of both of us, and but I don't. Man, I can go like 3-4 shows, same set, and
And that's kind of that's the thing that pulled me into Stringjoy, was just like they
they feel
last.
fresh.
Yeah.
I mean, it's like I don't need to be changing them all the time, and like my SG Junior, man, I'll change it like once before a tour and maybe like halfway through, because that's kind of the I tune that to open tuning, so I don't use it as much as I do my Les Paul in the set. So the Les Paul, I'll go like 3-4 shows and then change them if it needs it. But other than that, man, yeah, they last forever. They sound so great acoustically. They stay in tune. The packaging, I mean, just everything about them.
Yeah,
Big
awesome.
fan.
Nice. Well, I'm a big fan of you. This has been a lot of fun, dude. I am really excited to see you guys when you come to town at the Armory.
I'll make sure to hit you up before that.
Yeah,
gig.
Man. And
we'll
like, yeah, man, and good luck on your other gig, the new dad gig. That's an important one
that's an important one, the most important,
challenging one and rewarding one by far.
For sure,
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah, man, I'm just grateful that get to be home right now with him and just get to hang, man, because you got to soak up that time at home while you can.
Absolutely.
Especially, we'll be in Europe in a couple days, so
yeah, man. I absolutely appreciate you taking out some time to do this, because I know that you don't have much on your hands right now. So
thanks for having me, man. It's a pleasure to get to talk with you, and more to come.